Hey everybody, for my next tutorial, I want to now look at the whole generator game that we set up in the previous tutorial and do it purely in C++. Now, I did have a few conflicts on this because I ended up actually um, making a video of this initially and then finding that it was just like too long to follow properly. So I decided I'm going to try to simplify the way I present this information. Um, in general, when you are trying to convert a blueprint to C++, one thing that you can do to really help yourself along in knowing what that blueprint needs is, or what that C++ version of the blueprint needs, is if you find a blueprint that you made entirely in blueprints and you're going to convert it, you can right click and select preview equivalent C++ header. Now, this will not always work perfectly, but it will show you a lot of things about like how U functions need to be tagged and how U properties need to be tagged. Because in general, there are some cool ways that Unreal allows you to add these macros that allow you to add functionality to your code that is what allows it to interface with blueprints and other things. So I made a version of this tutorial where I went through the process of actually basically doing these step by step. And the problem was I think that it became too long and cumbersome to try to go through that exact process. So what I'm going to do instead is we're going to write the 6 classes that we need together, and I'm going to walk through what each of those classes need to contain within them and what needs to be written in them. But just know that I used this as a resource initially to get this work started. I just don't want to go through all of that in the video because that's going to probably make this video just cumbersomely long. So just know that this is here. This is a really useful feature. I'd also like to say before we get started, it's always a good idea to start when we're going to be doing a lot of programming to actually launch the editor through the .sln. So here I am where my U project file is in my Power Generator game folder. And I just want to like click on that .sln. You're going to see that it kind of runs a whole setting up the project thing when you open this for the first time, and like loading Unreal Engine project files, etc. And you want to just wait until that's done. And then you want to go to the top right, and where it says right now, because I'm already running, where it says the play button. Normally this would just be like a large play button, but because I already have it running, it shows that kind of circle arrow. But so then you play from here, and then that way, when the editor is launched, then you know that it's fully integrated with the solution and that all of the like necessary code files have been loaded. So from that, we're going to be looking at making the powerable interface, switchable interface, a powerable base actor, a powerable spotlight actor, a switch component, and a generator. And that's a lot of stuff. So we're going to try to go through it as quickly as possible, and I'm going to give the most general information that we need for this just to get this started and working. And then I'm going to maybe we'll go into more depth about some of those things when we start extending functionality in the future. But I want this to be like your first C++ programming process where we don't worry too much about all of the particulars, and we just say, okay, let's do most of what we need to do. So I'm going to go up to the top menu, Tools, New C++ Class, and I'm going to just make each of the classes. So I know I need a powerable interface. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this list of common classes, select Unreal Interface, select Next. I want to make it public, and I'm going to call this Powerable Interface. And yeah, we just want to make sure that it has public in there. create class. That's going to add code to the project. And then we're going to do that for additional code. Tools, new C++ class. Scroll down, we're going to make our second interface. Next. Switchable interface. So I want to make sure that that is public. I'm just looking for this to have that public there. Create class. Tools, new C++ class. And now we're going to make the powerable base, which is actually inheriting from actor. So I'm going to call this powerable actor base. Make that public. Create class. Tools, new C++ class. And then we're going to make a powerable spotlight. And then because we're actually going to need to rely on some of the code that was already there, we just want to make sure that that live coding succeeded already happened. So let's do that one more time. And this time we're going to select all classes. And then we're going to say, we're going to look for powerable actor base. Click next. I'm going to switch from private to public. And then this is going to be, we're going to call this powerable spotlight actor. Create class. I'm going to go back to Unreal, Tools, New C++ class. And this time we're going to be making the switch component. So we're going to go to all classes, and we want to make this a static mesh component. So we're going to select a static mesh component and make sure that it's public. And I'm going to call this switch component. Create class. And then I just need to make the generator component. or the generator actor rather. Tools, new C++ class. This is going to derive from actor. Next. We want it to be public. And I'm going to call this generator actor. And create class. Okay, so just so everything is starting out clean, I'm going to, I just closed the editor, and I have in my solution on the left, you can see that I have all of my private and public .h and .cpp files. .h, that refers to a header file, and this is the thing that is generally being read and accessed immediately by external classes. So it's kind of like your record of all your functions and variables. But then the .cpp would be the file that you're most familiar with in working with, like maybe some of the more basic C++ education processes where you don't use a header. And this is going to have where a lot of your code logic is. And so that the headers are what you're generally accessing to know what variables and functions exist. And it's so that when you're working on C++, you're not, loading the entirety of the code into memory when you're referencing it. You're just using the parts that it needs to access. So the header is what does that. So, okay, so first I want to make sure that we do this in a little bit of an organized fashion. So I'm going to go and click the little hamburger menu at the top, go to settings, and we're going to go under editor, general, editor tabs. And I'm just going to change the tab limit to 20 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 files that I want to have all open at one time. Yours might be defaulting to 10, and that would mean that your last 2 would always get closed. So then we can go ahead and save that. And then I just want to make sure that, we can double click on each of the files to open them up, just so that we have them. And basically all of the stuff that we're going to be doing in this assignment is going to be in these files. So I want to make sure that I'm organizing this so that it's clear. First, I kind of like to do this where we have the tabs showing each of the files. This is just a convenience thing for me. But I will right click on the .h files and I will pin them. So I have that powerable interface. Then I think because I want it to be second, I'm going to do the switchable interface, right click, pin tab. Then we have the powerable actor base.h. I'm going to right click on that one, pin tab. Then we have the powerable spotlight actor.h. I'm going to right click on that, select pin tab. And then we have the switch component.h. I'm going to right click and select that, pin tab. And the generator actor.h, I'm going to right click, select pin tab. And then what I want to do is I want to rearrange these for organizational purposes so that the CPP files are directly under their associated .h. Oh, gotta make sure it's switch interface and not switch component there. And then that way, just as far as like making sure that my brain is following what's happening, I'm going to be able to say, okay, I want the powerable interface, and then I want the powerable interface CPP. We can just see that more easily that way. Okay, so then now I'm going to kind of try to give us some more real estate here for the screen. So I'm just going to slide all this over here. And if you have stuff at the bottom, it doesn't really matter how much space you're trying to give yourself, but this is mainly so that you guys can see my code better as we're working on this. Almost every Unreal file is going to start with a pragma once. That's just going to make sure that like there can't be 2 of the exact same code file in the project. Then there's these includes, which usually start collapsed in Rider. That these are just these are .h header files that are usually from the engine, but will sometimes be from your code or your generated code that this class needs in order to do the work that it's doing. And most of this is why we do that whole tools create new C++ class, is that this gets us started off right. And then because we're using Rider, it's also going to be easy to add ones that we need for code that you're working on in the future. We're not going to go into extreme depth about all the different kind of boilerplate setup that you need in Unreal, but just keep in mind this generated body, this is part of Unreal's compilation framework. It's created automatically, and fortunately when you do things like creating an interface class, it actually creates all the boilerplate that you need to begin with, so you don't have to do this all manually, because you'll see this set up in your class automatically. Now, in some cases, when we're doing more advanced things, we might have to have a little more manual control over this. But for right now, this shouldn't be too bad, because this is actually kind of what we need to get kicked off here. So, all right, so what we want to do is we want to create the functions that are going to be used in our interfaces, kind of the way that we did that with the blueprint. And with C++, I think you're going to find that this is actually easier to actually just get things working, because you can it's kind of a what you see is what you get kind of thing, as long as you have some familiarity with code. And so first, when we're doing interfaces that are designed for C++ rather than for blueprints, we want to make these functions virtual. And also, as opposed to blueprint interfaces, we don't actually need to create outputs in the same way if we make a function that has a return type. So return type means that it will, you can use it to receive the value that's returned by the function. So I'm going to make two interfaces, interface functions for the Powerable interface. And because we want to be able to override them, I'm going to make them virtual. So it's going to be virtual bool try to power, and then parentheses, and I'm going to pass one argument into this, which is going to be bool power goal, and then semicolon. And then if I want to make this a little bit faster, I'm going to make a second one. So I'm just going to grab this, Control-C to copy, and then enter a couple times at the end of the line. And then I know this time I'm not going to want an argument passed into it. And it's not going to be called try to power. It's going to be called get has power. And this is the equivalent to the get power state that we used in the previous one. And then because we don't currently have the editor open, I can just hit Control-B to build the application. And we'll see if there's anything else that needs to happen here. So it's going to go through. It's going to build that process. And then you'll notice that it actually has an unresolved symbol for the try to power. That's going to likely be because we need to actually implement these interfaces, because if you go to the Powerable interface.cpp, you will see that there's no iPowerable interface functions listed here, but fortunately Rider makes that really easy to do. So I can right click on this function, select show context actions, and then select generate definition. And because it has a return type, I need to make sure that it returns something. And so this is going to be overridden in our other classes. So we're just going to do a return false. Or return false. And then I'm going to jump back to the other one. And then you'll notice now that actually it shows a little squiggle under there that if you highlight over it, it says function bool iPowerable interface has power is not implemented. So this time, actually, we can hit the Alt-Enter key, and then that will pop up the generate definition, and we can just do that a tiny bit quicker. And then we're also going to make this one return false. And now if we hit Control-B, I'm going to see it go through the process of building, and you'll see that it said result succeeded, and then it says build succeeded over here. That means that we know that that's the thing that we need to do for those interfaces. So then let's jump over to the switchable interface, and we're going to do basically the same thing here. In fact, we're going to do so much the same thing that I'm going to copy the two functions that I have in my powerable interface. And so select them all, Control C, then go to the switchable interface, and then under where it says public here, I'm going to hit Control V. But I'm going to change this. Instead of saying try to power, it's going to be try switch. And instead of having this bool power goal, we're actually going to use a reference to an actor, which is going to be kind of the instigator of this action. And we're not going to necessarily make much use of that right now, but in the future that will be valuable. So we're going to have, this is going to type in a actor, which should autocomplete. And then I'm just going to use the word instigator for the name. And this also needs to have an asterisk afterward to let you know that that we're not trying to access the class. We're trying to access an instance of the class. And then under the virtual bool get has power, we're going to change this to get switch state. And then we want to just, we can alt enter, generate definition, and then go back to the .h file, shift right click, which does the same thing, generate definition. And then this will see, if you see the kind of squiggly they're showing, it says no return statement function. So we just need to do the same thing that we did with the other ones. And remember, this is just boilerplate. So we're going to return false, which is the most basic way that we could set that up. And then there we go. We have all of our interfaces.